Well, hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. I know, let's go. I'm excited. One thing you should be excited about today is we've actually taken a step back from World War III. There's talks of a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. I don't know what's going to go on between Russia and Ukraine, but this seems to be a step in the right direction in a tornado of geopolitical upheaval as of late. My first guest is going to help me out with some of the details here. Honored to have you back on, retired Lieutenant Colonel Tony Schaefer on the James Show. So any details? Do you think, is this really going to happen? Are they going to stop fighting over there for a minute?
Well, James, I think the most important factor is it's not Tony Blinken or the typical Three Stooges saying it's going to be a ceasefire. You've actually got the Israelis saying it. So I always recognize there's a distinction with a difference. If the Israelis say it, it's probably going to happen. If you have the White House saying it, it's all vapor. So in this case, this has been rumored for the last 48 hours. Now, the fact that Netanyahu is taking this to his version of Congress for approval, it's pretty certain it's going to happen at this point.
Who gets credit for negotiating this?
Well, the Israelis with the Lebanese, and I think the Egyptians and a few other countries have been very helpful. You're going to hear the White House take credit. The White House has been held at arm's length for any number of reasons. And I think the fact that I'm not going to give Trump any credit, but I will say this about Trump. The fact that Trump's coming in has helped solidify the idea that things need to be resolved quickly.
It put a timetable on it is kind of what I see.
Yeah, exactly. No, Trump said, he's going to come in, he's going to change some things. And I think a lot of the adversaries, especially Hezbollah, recognize it's not going to get any better for them. So maybe they better take the deal they've got right now.
So what is Lebanon's situation in all this? They've always had some split alliances or allegiances, but I've always thought they were probably a little more on the Muslim side versus the Israel side. But where are they today?
That's a good question. So essentially, Lebanon has been mostly a Christian country. What happened was Hezbollah became essentially a virus. They become not only a terrorist organization, they're part of the political landscape. They are a political party. So what has happened is that over the last 30 years, there's been essentially a friction between the two. A lot of Lebanese don't necessarily like Hezbollah, but it's something that they could not completely rid themselves of. So the other factor is the Lebanese military is supposed to have been a buffer between the Israelis and Hezbollah, Hezbollah being funded and supported by Iran, being radical Islam. So in this case, recently, the Lebanese military actually suffered casualties because they were trying to essentially protect Hezbollah. So to your point, it's a mess. I don't know if anybody understands exactly the geopolitical landscape, but at this point, the Israelis have been able to essentially push back, recreate the safe zones that they're supposed to have, so that you don't have Hezbollah missiles coming into Israeli settlements. So, by the way, another thing, a quick note: the United Nations has quote unquote peacekeepers in the region who apparently aren't very good at keeping the peace. Just saying. So,
all right, I know you have to get out of here, Tony.
Yeah.
Mention Project Sentinel real quick.
So, Project Sentinel, constitutionally based governance and national security concepts. Check us out at projectsentinel.com. Hopefully, I'll be back later this week for some longer time with you. So thanks for having me.
Well, I appreciate the time you gave us today, Lieutenant Colonel Tony Schaefer, president of the Project Sentinel, spelling out good news from the Middle East. Hey, that's pretty cool. They may actually start getting along. But we had the hero in this, Lebanon. Okay, we'll take it. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227 if you have any comments on one of the World War III's retreating somewhat. But coming up next, Trump has now officially made all of his cabinet picks, and you'll hear the starting lineup for Trump administration 2.0 on the James Show. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey, welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. I feel like doing like the whole stadium thing. And now your starting lineup for your Trump administration 2.0 is, because we have the whole cabinet picked out now. And so now we have sort of the team. We have the starting lineup here. Let's run through the cabinet real quick. You probably have heard of about half these people. I mean, that's all I've heard of. And you're probably about on my level. So Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Okay. let's talk about Scott Bessent. Do you know who Scott Bessent is? Yeah, I don't really either. I can read up on him real quick. He's a hedge fund CEO. For a lot of people, that makes him evil. For me, that makes him probably a fantastic capitalist pig like myself. He's gay, not that we care, but he would be the first LGBTQ plus person to lead the Treasury. And I think he'd be like the highest level openly gay fella's ever been, with some, asterisk next to some closet suspicions. Again, not that that's a big deal, but they like to act like it's a big deal when the other team doesn't. But really, the important part, how would he govern? I don't know. The only thing I can see is he does support the tax cuts, but he also supports the increased tariffs. So cut these taxes, raise these taxes. And all right, so he's doing this sort of neo-Keynesian Trump thing, kind of what you would expect from the guy who's going to be the secretary of the Treasury. Rand Paul was asked about Scott Bessent on the Sunday shows this weekend. He knows him a little better than I do.
I've heard good things about him. I haven't made a decision. I lean towards being supportive. I don't like tariffs, but then again, I don't like the president promoting tariffs. I think tariffs are a tax on the consumer, and they ignore things like with steel. There are 80 workers working in steel buying industry for every worker making steel. So yeah, you can protect certain industries, but it's at the expense of other people. I don't believe that'll be enough for me to want to vote against Bessent, because it's also the president's position as well. I will be vocal in saying that I think tariffs are bad, and that international trade actually saves every consumer about $7,000 a year.
Okay, well, tepid applause for that. I'm down with that. Look, the important part is how many of us are in the cabinet. And so out of the millions and millions of people who we can call neighbors here in North Texas, 3 of them, 3 North Texans are in the cabinet. Now, you already knew about John Ratcliffe. He had been announced, I think, last week that he's nominated to head the CIA. Again, all these people have to be confirmed. But so, yeah, John Ratcliffe, he's a former congressman, kind of the best known name out of the 3 I'm going to mention here. Another one is Brooke Rollins of Glen Rose. She has been nominated to lead the Department of Agriculture. So that's pretty cool. The other one is a name I think I know 3 Scott Turners, but this is the Scott Turner that's from Richardson. He played in the NFL for a little bit. He was in the Trump administration 1.0. I think he was in HUD. Now he's going to lead HUD, or at least he's been nominated to lead HUD. And what's he been doing in the meantime? Well, he's 52 years old. He's an associate pastor at Prestonwood Baptist Church in Plano, or more affectionately known as Fort God. Seriously, if you drive past that thing, you're like, what is that? Is that like Fort, what is it? Fort God? Oh, okay. Like when Jesus and his armies come back, they can just station there. It's huge. Looks like a military complex. And that's not to belittle it. Big fan. They have pickup volleyball games I used to go to. It was great. So that's the most important part. How many of our neighbors are going to be in there? So out of North Texas, we get 3, and that's pretty cool. And they're big assignments. CIA, Department of Agriculture, that's huge. Housing and Urban Development, less impressive there. If you put me in charge of the Housing and Urban Development, I would show up. I would just make the orders to tear the whole building down brick from brick. Everybody's fired, and we'll salt the earth on which the building stood. But he didn't ask me to lead the department. So going through some of the other cabinet picks, by the way, if you have any hot sports opinions on any of these, 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard is something that gets a lot of nice words thrown about by Team Red, because she has been able to criticize her fellow Team Blue members. And now she's kind of a Team Red. She left the Democrats and is part of a Republican Party, but can you really trust her? I guess we're going to have to. I don't know. I like the idea of reaching out and including like people who aren't solidly Team Red, throwing out a wide tent, but you might want to keep an eye on that. Also, Marco Rubio as Secretary of State. That's probably the biggest pick where I'm like, well, let's keep an eye on this guy too, because he's kind of the Republican that came through the Tea Party movement, but the longer he got in there, he started sounding less like Rand Paul and more like Dick Cheney. And so which Marco Rubio are we going to get starting next year, or really starting in 2 months, if you think about it? Don't know. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Sounds fine to me. What do I know about defense? And look, not to belittle the office, but isn't that one of the easiest jobs on planet Earth? Hey, I'm the defense secretary for the largest military the world has ever known. Like, there's no way you could lose a war. How would you lose a war? Who's going to beat you? Canada? So yeah, defense secretary. What a sweet job that is. You know, that's like it's like being the head coach for the Harlem Globetrotters. You know, you don't really have to worry about your record, do you? Oh, we could just rain missiles down on anybody at planet Earth at all times. I'm just going to sit here and make sure we're all safe. Thank you, Pete. And that makes the criticism of him just hilarious. Like, I don't know if he's qualified. I mean, he's just a weekend morning host on Fox and Friends. But what an idiot. It's like, bro, you could put my dog, and not even my good dog, my fat dog. You could put my fat dog in that chair, and we still wouldn't lose a war. Thank you very much. But Pete Hegseth seems like a nice guy. I've never met him or interviewed him. Pam Bondi is going to be the attorney general if she can get through the nomination process. She was Florida's attorney general for most of the 2010s. I don't really know a whole lot about her, except I think, was she on the show? Didn't I have her on? Because she was with America's First Policy Institute for a while, and I may have interviewed her at some point. Great memory I have there, but I at least know her name. I do not know this lady that is nominated for Labor Secretary, Lori Chavez DeRemer. That was the woman who got nice words from Jasmine Crockett that you heard on yesterday's show. Jasmine Crockett being the congresswoman for where I'm sitting now. We're in her district here in downtown Dallas. But she is just getting higher and higher profile as the days go along. And she was on the Sunday shows this weekend, and she was actually able to say some nice things about her. She knows more than I do. So there's your labor secretary. Again, it's really hard as someone who has some libertarian leanings when it comes to these cabinets to even pretend like I care. Because what do I think should happen with the Department of Labor? You should go in there, fire everybody, knock over the building, separate, and don't leave one brick on top of another, remove all the rubble, salt the earth on which the building stood, and write a public apology note to the American taxpayers. That's what the labor secretary should do. But then again, no one consulted me on such things. Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, same thing. No brick on top of another, salt the earth, public apology. Homeland Security Secretary, Kristi Noem. I'm a big fan of Kristi Noem because she looks good and she has an attitude, which is fine. I don't think I would like for her to host a dinner party, but she's kind of like Trump. Look, I don't want people who are nice or fun or don't do mean tweets. I want people who are effective, who follow policy prescriptions that I think will make this country better. Again, the Homeland Security Secretary. Homeland Security Secretary didn't even exist until 2002. Are we better off now? Do we really need all that? No, that's another one that could go away. But anyway, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, we already mentioned him. He's a fellow Texan. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy. I might go stock up on Fruit Loops. And by the way, I'm not convinced that all these chemicals are bad. I'm not convinced that preservatives are bad or GMO bell peppers are going to kill us or make us grow tumors. I'm not convinced. Glyphosate, Roundup, that's fine. Put it on the food. I'd rather have that than bugs eating it. I'd rather have preservatives in it than eat something rotten. And I don't know. It's working for me so far. I'm a solid 6 over here, and I'm not even trying. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins, that's the other, our neighbor from Glen Rose. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, he needs to go dismantle that entire department. Veterans Affairs Secretary Doug Collins, don't know him. Interior Secretary Doug Burgum, that was one of the guys that was in the running for VP. I guess this was his consolation prize. Energy Secretary Chris Wright. Education Secretary Linda McMahon. Linda McMahon? You mean like that Linda McMahon? Yes, Linda McMahon. Dismantle that whole department while you're at it. Just hit it from the top turnbuckles. Do that thing where you jump off and you hit it on the top of the department with your elbow. Crack its skull. EPA Director Lee Zeldin. Housing and Urban Development Scott Turner. That'll do. There it is. That is your official lineup for the Trump administration 2.0. We'll see how they do. All right, coming up next, there's, speaking of football music, there's an international crime ring that's targeting NFL players. Hey, at least they got some money to steal. Legal experts say they could get up to 30 years in prison and a loss of downs. Now, details coming up next on The James Show. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there. Welcome to The James Show. This is News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. I am your host, James Parker, and we are also your home for blessedbethefruit.org. Blessedbethefruit.org is your home for the Project 2025 implementation. So if you have any questions about who's being deported, who's being sent to FEMA camps, who's getting genocided, we have your answers. Also, you can order your copy of the Super Bible at blessedbethefruit.org. Super Bible is the ultimate holy book with a compilation of the Old Testament, New Testament, Constitution, and Project 2025, all in one book. Order today, blessedbethefruit.org. All right, my next guest is going to talk about a story that has me scratch my head. The NFL is being targeted by an international crime ring. What are they, scamming them over the phone? What's going on here? Lieutenant Randy Sutton, retired Lieutenant Randy Sutton, back on the James Show. What is going on? People are scamming NFL players?
No, they're not scamming, burglarizing their homes. This is an active criminal organization that is generated out of South America. They're literally from different countries, Peru, Colombia, Ecuador, Chile, and they're very sophisticated in their operations. They have sophisticated equipment that can defeat pretty advanced security systems. They utilize drones for surveillance amongst they dress up as, say, construction people, joggers, in order to perform surveillance at high net worth people's homes. And the NFL players, this is just the latest in their victimization. They've actually been active for a number of years, but it's been flying under the radar. But now that they hit a couple NFL players' homes, well, it suddenly came into the public's view. They are very sophisticated. They follow social media. They choose their targets. They place them under surveillance, and their MO is to get in and out within 10 minutes of the burglary, because they know that even if they do trip a security system, there's going to be a response time involved, and they have these times down. So they're very sophisticated. They're very active, and then they hightail it back to their home country, and the risk versus the reward is minimal, especially when you look at some of the places that they have victimized. Many of the homes are Hollywood people, or in the entertainment industry in California, Los Angeles, Hollywood, some of the higher-end housing areas. And even when they get caught, as a number of them have, they're literally, no bail, low bail. They get released from jail, and that's the last anybody sees of them. So they're very, very competent at what they do.
All right, so I would imagine if I was going to rob an NFL player, I would just find out when they have an away game and take my sweet time. But you threw me off. They're in and out in 10 minutes, and they're tripping alarm systems and escaping. But even if they don't escape, they get out pretty soon. What's the solution to this, Randy?
Well, the solution, unfortunately, is you have to target harden your homes, your residences. This is something that actually all Americans have to be aware of. Very often these burglaries that affect just the normal Americans are crimes of opportunity. But similarly, there are organized gangs that target individuals through getting information. Say they have somebody on the inside of a jewelry store where they know that they made a big purchase, and then they will target that individual and go and get into their home and steal whatever they can steal. As far as these rings go, like the South American ring, they're only going for big money. One of the houses that they hit in L.A., they got $8 million.
Whoa!
$8 million. So, and they take things that are very easy to fence. And they have, of course, all of the organized crime contacts for, they get maybe, they get pennies on the dollar for the stolen items. But when you're talking about $8 million, that's still a pretty good payday.
All right, so you're with the Wounded Blue. We had an officer killed in the line of duty here in North Texas over the last 24 hours. A Greenville police officer was shot multiple times, returned fire hitting the suspect, but he ended up not surviving his injuries. Officer Cooper Dawson just died early this morning. Makes me think of operations like yours. I mean, this is a kind of situation where organizations like yours step in. Your thoughts?
The Wounded Blue is a national charity that I started about 5 years ago. We've helped more than 14,000 injured law enforcement officers in that time. We provide peer support for injured officers. My entire team is made up of police officers who have been shot, stabbed, beaten, run over, hit by bricks. Some severely injured. I have officers who have been blinded, officers who have been paralyzed, and yet they continue to serve their law enforcement community by working with officers who have been similarly injured. And believe me, last year, more than 70,000 American law enforcement officers were physically assaulted in the line of duty. And many of those officers have permanent injuries. And so what we do is we work with them to help them get through this traumatic time. And this year for Christmas, we're making our Wounded Blue Christmas campaign happen to help the families of these injured officers by providing money for toys and just to make Christmas happen for some of these financially stricken police officers, because when a cop gets injured, very often they face strong, heavy financial issues because of it. So the Wounded Blue steps in, and we're going to make Christmas happen for a lot of police families this year. I urge people, if they want to help out, go to thewoundedblue.org. That's thewoundedblue.org, and give what you can. Learn about our organization. And if you're a police officer who's listening to this, who is struggling, either because of post-traumatic stress issues or because you've been injured in the line of duty, please reach out to the Wounded Blue, and I can be contacted personally. Randy at thewoundedblue.org.
Thewoundedblue.org. I guess it's not too early to say Happy Thanksgiving, so Happy Thanksgiving, Randy.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yep, thanks for coming on. Yeah, that's not a real fun part of the show, is it? But it's serious. Coming up next, the Denver mayor said he's not going to comply with mass deportation efforts. Well, the incoming Tom Homan, the new border czar, says fine, then he's just going to get himself arrested. Uh-oh. Do you think he should be arrested if he doesn't comply? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. You'll hear what I think next. I'm James Parker. It's The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there. Welcome to The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, and another Emperor Has No Clothes moment. To give you an example, yesterday, the Emperor Has No Clothes moment was when we talked about allowing the Bible to even be referenced for any reason whatsoever in a public school classroom. And I just thought, yeah, I think it's insane that we've been able to talk about, Zeus and Jupiter and Odin and Woden and all these other gods, but not the one book, not the one religion, philosophy, stream of thought, ethos that's the underpinning of our entire civilization. Thought that was a no-brainer. Well, and today's no-brainer of the day, the Denver mayor says that he's not going to comply with the mass deportation program under Trump. In fact, not only is he going to not actively help them out, he says he is going to withhold support. He's going to, from the Fed's point of view, throw up obstacles to enforcing the law. So here is something that you have thought should be the story all along. Like, well, this is nothing new. This is a sanctuary city. We know what this looks like. This is when people at the local level selectively enforce the laws from the federal level, and no one's ever done anything about it before. And you've always thought, well, why don't they go kick these people out of office or arrest them or charge them with a crime or charge them for dereliction of duty? Or there are things on the books where if you don't follow the law and you're an officer of the law and you have taken an oath to enforce the law and you still don't do it, isn't there some legality? I mean, I'm not Jeremy Rosenthal. I'm not the legal expert here. But here's Tom Homan, your new border czar, sitting next to your governor, Greg Abbott, talking. I think this was on Hannity last night. I had talked about this. I had talked about the Denver mayor's not going to comply. Shouldn't he be arrested? And then here it is, just 3 hours after the James Show is over, Tom Homan saying he should be arrested. All right.
And I want you to be clear about who has jurisdiction, the federal government or state and local governments. And if you're a sanctuary state or city, are you breaking the law?
You're absolutely breaking the law. All you have to do is look at Arizona versus U.S. You'll see these breaking the law. But look, me and the Denver mayor, we agree on one thing. He's willing to go to jail. I'm willing to put him in jail. Because there's a statute, it's Title 8 United States Code 1324 III, and what it says is, it's a felony if you knowingly harbor and conceal an illegal alien from immigration authorities. It's also a felony to impede a federal law enforcement officer. So if we don't want to help, that's fine. He can get the hell out of the way. But we're going to go do the job. President Trump has a mandate for American people. We got to secure this country. We got to save American lives. And I find it shocking that any mayor of a city would say, President Trump's been clear. We want to concentrate on public safety threats and national security threats. I find it hard to believe that any mayor or governor would say they don't want public safety threats removed from their neighborhoods. I mean, I don't know what the hell is going on in Denver, but we're going to go and we're going to fix it. If you don't want to fix it, if you don't want to protect his communities, President Trump and ICE will.
So you will be going into Colorado, Illinois, New York, California, and you are going to uphold the law of the land. That's your commitment. It doesn't matter what these elected politicians threaten or say that they're going to do.
We're going to enforce the law, period. And they're not going to stop us.
Do it. Do it. Do it. Arrest the mayor. Arrest the mayor of a sanctuary city. Please do it. Well, I don't understand why y'all didn't start doing this 20, 30 years ago when they started being sanctuary cities. You know, that's one of the most insidious abuses of power is selective enforcement. I mean, you might as well just be the full-blown tyrant, king, dictator, whatever you want to call it, if you're going to selectively enforce the laws. And this is another pattern that I'm surprised doesn't get called out more. You know, the party that talks about equal treatment and no one's above the law and everyone should be treated equal, no one's better than the other. And we're so sensitive about inequalities, whether it's racism, sexism, transism, or homophobia or whatever it is. But then you have like real unequal treatment. And not only are they not fighting against it, they're the ones doing it. That's all I want for illegal immigrants. I just want them to be treated just like you would be if you broke the law. If you broke the law and there was a cop standing next to you and he arrested you and he had you in custody and he had you in the jail, would he be like, nah, I'm not going to charge you with this crime. Go ahead and get out of here. No, they don't do that, but they do it for non-citizens. Well, that's not fair. You have mayors saying, I'm just not going to enforce the law on this one special group of people. Well, then they're not being treated equal. They're a protected citizen. They are a protected class. I hope this all goes away. This seemed like a big old no-brainer. Oh, you're not going to enforce the laws? Well, that's cool. You're in dereliction of your office. Here's some handcuffs. You're going to come with me. Let's see what happens, because this may be really fun. A couple of shows we get to do here in 2 months, because all it takes is one guy to get handcuffs slapped on and the rest will comply. Fold like a dirty shirt. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Coming up next on The James Show, more talk on Jack Smith's request to dismiss Trump's January 6 charges. It looks like his legal troubles are over, dude. I'm James Parker. It's The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to The James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Let's go. All right, before we push you off and shove you into all the fun that is the holidays, I want to remind you that if you have any questions about who's being deported, who's being sent to FEMA camps, who's getting genocided, we have all the answers for you at blessedbethefruit.org. And remember, right after the inauguration, it'll be time to seize all the single ladies' wombs. So if you are single, woman, and of childbearing age, if you could go ahead and go to the website and let us know what size you want for your Handmaid's Tale costume, that would be great. It can all be found at blessedbethefruit.org. Blessedbethefruit.org. All right, my next guest doesn't have to worry about such things because, you know, we have toxic male privilege over here. Donald Kimball's back on from Young Voices. Welcome to The James Show.
Well, thank you for having me. And, you know, I might have to worry because my wife and I are expecting our first son in March. So, you know, maybe I need to get her an outfit. Well, listen, as long as she's owned by her husband, then she doesn't have to wear the FEMA garb, the FEMA gown. Jokes aside, Donald Kimball, we actually have the entire cabinet assembled. What's your first take on it? People seem to be generally cautiously positive.
Yeah, I mean, it is yet to be seen. There was reason for some level of cautious optimism last time, and I think a lot of the appointments didn't pan out there. What remains to be seen for us is if Trump's agenda is carried out by these people, or if they're going to revert to some of their own tendencies. I'm in particular curious to look and see if Marco Rubio, who has historically been a very outspoken, aggressive hawk, is going to curb back some of those tendencies or not, to be more in line with Trump's general geopolitical stance. It's hard to be seen. He has, picked a lot of people who seem to be loyal to him a little bit more this time around, which probably indicates that he's, not looking to repeat the mistakes of his first administration.
Right. I mean, he had two of his picks try and do spy on him, like within the matter of months. Comey had leaked some of that private memos to his buddy at the Washington Post, and then you had Omarosa with a tape recorder or digital recorder. I know there's not tape anymore, but trying to record him in a meeting without his knowledge. So that was one of the things that was such a big concern about the first Trump administration. That Trump 2.0, will it do better?
Yeah, and I'm a little bit concerned only because some of the appointments there really did seem to be coming from a place of pure loyalty and not necessarily policy alignment, but that loyalty can be faked. I just get a little bit worried when, for instance, Representative Mike Waltz, I believe, I think it was him that John Bolton was speaking as, that would be my top pick for this position. And I'm just a little concerned when John Bolton is happy about a pick that I tend to not be super happy about that. So there have been quite a few of these appointments that ideologically speaking, they're not actually aligned with a lot of the reasons why people have supported Trump. But they sort of outwardly say they support Trump. And so I'm hoping, again, that Trump is at least able to rein them in a little bit to align more to his vision rather than them branching off into what they have historically done. Remains to be seen. It's hard to judge one way or the other. If the general feeling is cautiously optimistic, I'm a little cautiously pessimistic, but I think it's too early to say for sure.
Well, Jack Smith has announced that he's going to dump the last of Trump's January 6 charges. So pretty much all his legal troubles are over, except for a couple of judgments that are going to cost some money. But the idea that he might go to prison, I think that's pretty much gone. Are these people going to go nuts? They've been told for the last 9 years Trump is going to prison any day now.
I don't think there's going to be any sort of massive outreach in the same or outcry in the same way that there wasn't after the Russia hoax was sort of fell through. I think it will be a similar result where people, no matter what the actual evidence points to, no matter what the actual legal facts are, people will always have, who want to have this belief, will always have the belief that, he's a criminal, he should have been convicted, in the same way that they're still repeating nonsense like, Tulsi Gabbard is a Russian asset, or there was collusion between Russia and Trump. Even though those things are definitively not true, the fact that they were brought up to begin with doesn't matter that they didn't end up being true. That narrative will always linger and exist. But I do agree. I don't think there can really be any reasonable action, even if, they let Jack Smith specifically had dismissed without, without saying that the claims themselves were wrong so that you could hypothetically bring it up at a later time. I don't think there will be the political will to do that by the time 2028 rolls around.
So we have a handful of Democrat mayors who are saying they're not going to comply with Donald Trump's mass deportation program. More specifically, Tom Homan was asked about the mayor of Denver, saying that he's not going to hold criminals for ICE to come pick up and deport. And Tom Homan said that, okay, if he's going to do that, he's going to get arrested. Your thoughts?
I think it's something that's going to be actually, I think a battle that's more likely to resolve itself in the courts than anything else. I think what will happen is there will be edicts from the federal government come down. There will be dissidents who refuse to enforce them, like, this Denver mayor, and then it will end up running into the court system. And the court system right now just really is not Trump's friend. So that's where I think the biggest weakness of his deportation agenda could be, is that, if the enforcers of this are being told by the court system and by the legal bureaucracy, do not do this, and then Trump and, DC is saying, do it, they're not just going to ignore the courts. They're not going to ignore the bureaucracy. And so I think finding a way to circumvent that is Trump's next, that would be his strategic move, I think, because otherwise I do think you fall into that legal gridlock.
Donald Kimball, where do they find your work outside of WBAP?
KimballDonald.com and Kimball Donald on X.com.
All right. Thank you very much. Coming up next, my kids are off all week. Are your kids off of school all week for Thanksgiving? Do you remember Having a whole week off for Thanksgiving? This is ridiculous. No, James, why are you, is it really that big of a deal if kids get a couple extra days off? No. It's not just a couple extra days off here. There's a couple extra days off there. I don't think you understand how weak and how many days off the public school calendar has become, even in the great state of Texas. You'll hear my scathing indictment next on The James Show. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to The James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Welcome back to the big show. Just a reminder, blessedbethefruit.org is your home for Project 2025 implementation. Remember, after the inauguration, single women, childbearing age, you must register for selective service. So please let our Christian database know also what size of the Handmaid's Tale outfit you need. Register today at blessedbethefruit.org. No, that's a parody. Don't at me. David Hamilton's my next guest, coming back on from America's Future series. Now, I'm glad to have you on today. I've kind of been worried about World War III the last few visits you've had, but good news this time around. There's talks of a ceasefire. What's the word, David?
Well, yeah, the Lebanese Hamas-backed group has been pushed. You know, they've been decapitated. Some of their senior leaders have been killed, and it's funny how that works. If you bloody a bully's nose, they kind of back up a little bit. So happy to see that. You and I talked on your show a couple of times, maybe a week back or so, that it looked like also there might be some progress with Hamas in the southern part of Israel. And I think as we get closer to Christmas and New Year's, that's probably going to happen as well. And that's nothing we've done. It's just the Israelis have done a really effective job of going in there, rooting those people out and killing them. And I'd like to see it'd be great to see that area be cleared by, say, the beginning of the year.
So Lebanon as the mediator, explain that one, David.
Well, Lebanon actually backs Hamas, and so they're fronting for them. And the great part about this is it alleviates some pressure on the southern side. You know, fighting a two-front war is very difficult for Israel. Getting them to back up across the river that's about 20 miles away, that was going to be really helpful, et cetera, and gives a little breathing room for Israel to focus on the southern part and deal with Hamas, which has been actually the bigger threat for a longer time.
Wait, so this isn't
promising on both sides.
I'm sorry, this isn't a deal with Hamas. This is a deal with Lebanon. So they're still going to have rockets flying from Gaza into Israel?
Oh, yeah. So you got two fronts. You've got Hezbollah, which is backed by Lebanon, right?
Right.
You've got Iran, which is backing and funds Hamas, and they work in concert. You know, they're attacking Israel from two fronts. Having this progress is valuable, taking some pressure off of the north, where rockets have been fired into northern Israel, is very helpful, not only on its own sake, but it also is going to give some breathing room and an opportunity, I think, for Israel to focus on Hamas to the south.
So what's the difference between Hamas and Hezbollah? Are they just different flavors of Sunni and Shia for the same goal?
Absolutely, because the Iranians are a Shia, right, and they back a Shia-backed sect of Islam, whereas the Lebanese, I believe, are Sunni mostly, and so they're two sides of the same coin.
Man, every Lebanese person that I've met over here, and granted it's anecdotal, is a Christian Lebanese. They call themselves Christian Arabs of Lebanese descent. That seems to be a weird coincidence because I maybe met 10, but every single one of them was a Christian that was fleeing violence in the 80s.
And every Iranian I've met from that's come over here, these are great people. They believe in freedom. They believe in the American system. I've had a number of friends who protested against Iranians during the Shah was taken out. These are great people, and we need to embrace them. Unfortunately, they come from a land which it makes it very, very difficult for people to have freedom, and therefore they value it even more than I think most people.
All right, David Hamilton, the other big theater, I don't see a whole lot of improvement there. What's going on with Russia and Ukraine?
Yeah, we've experienced over the past 48 hours or so the biggest set of drone strikes that Russia has launched, about 188 drone strikes. Not all of them terribly effective. That's one thing. But they have taken more territory. Basically, in the past week, they've taken an equivalent to, say, McKinney, Plano, and Frisco. To give some people some perspective of how much land they've taken. And that's more land they've taken in probably pretty much all of last year. So this has been a big push, and it's going to be a big push as the weather allows it. Come January, it's going to be so cold, the average high is 30 degrees. That's going to slow things down. And so in anticipation of the weather being bad and in anticipation of possibly Trump coming in and brokering a deal, both sides are throwing as many haymakers as they can.
David Hamilton, in a military sense, we haven't seen drone warfare be fully utilized. I just imagine that's the next generation. What would you do to stop it? If you're an aircraft carrier or you're a personnel carrier or you're just a guy in a tent and you see a swarm of drones coming at you, I mean, you could probably shoot a few of them down, but if one or two get through with an explosive, you're a dead man. How would you stop that? Do we even know what to do about that yet?
Well, the Ukrainians have really perfected it, and they've taken $1,000 drones and destroyed $1 million tanks. And so they have fundamentally changed how war is executed. Defending yourself from drones is very, very difficult. A few of them are going to get through, and of course, there are a couple different styles. The ones that the Russians are using are the cheaper ones from Iran, primarily, which are more throwaway.
Like the Fisher Price, My First Drone?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so they're throwing lots of them at the Ukrainians, and they're just not that effective. But some get through, and it's very, very difficult. And so drone warfare is permanently changing how war will be fought in the future. These big systems and tanks, et cetera, are vulnerable to them. They're going to have to get a lot better using sensing capabilities in order to protect themselves from those smaller gnats, if you will. But those are they're like wasps; they sting. And it's getting harder and harder to do that. The drones are getting better. The defenses are getting better. But ultimately, the drones are prevailing simply because of the cost versus, effectiveness ratio is much better for the drones.
Right. But I foresee, when the big World War III or maybe World War IV comes around, the most skilled guy will be those of us who grew up playing duck hunt, because you go up outside with your shotgun, and if you can pick them all off before they get to you, that's how you survive a drone strike. A few shotgun shells might do it there. David Hamilton, America's Future Series, give yourself a 30-second plug before we get out of here.
Well, thank you. I'll plug you guys. You guys do a better job, you in particular, with your show, focusing on this war that the rest of America tends to ignore. The Russians have lost roughly 500,000 people to casualties and to death. The Ukrainians have lost about half that, but they have a third the population. People are dying, and we have to have a plan not just to fight this war, but to figure out how to end it. And I'm very hopeful that when President Trump gets in, they'll be able to negotiate a deal that everyone's unhappy with, but it ends the war.
Thank you very much, David Hamilton, America's Future Series. Appreciate your time again. I did not know the numbers were that big. I didn't know 500,000 Russians are dead. That's the 500,000 families that are like, I sure do hate America right now. There's going to be some blowback from that. That can't be good. All right, coming up next, you and I are going to have sort of a social conversation, because I'm getting a lot of requests for hanging out. Not that I'm like Mr. Popular or anything, but there's a few people here and there that are like, hey, man, just want to meet and have a beer. Why don't you come to my event? Or let's talk about that next. Like, do we need to start doing that? I've been on the air for a year here now. Do we need to do like a weekly hangout? What day would it be on? Does it need to be at one place, or does it rotate? Do we do an activity, pool, darts, poker, trivia, karaoke, skee ball, arcade, duck hunt? Maybe we could go to a gun range. I don't know. So we'll talk about that next. What should we do? What day should it be on? What time should it be? What neighborhood? What activity? Where? All that good stuff. Let me know. Venues. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Oh, yeah. And if you own a bar or a gun range or an event space or a venue, 800-288-9227. Let me know. Maybe I can bum some space off of you. I'm James Parker. It's The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.